Hello and good morning, everyone. I'm Damien McCarthy, Managing Director of HR Buddy. You're very welcome to this morning's webinar. We run these webinars on a monthly basis. So it's to give you updates on employment law, HR best practices, and so on. And we are receiving great engagement and interest. So thank you very much to everyone who's coming in to see what information we have, I suppose the latest updates. We have a number of things that we want to share with you this morning. So I'm just going to try to share my screen here now to see if I can get it working. I'm joined by Breach Fallon this morning, my colleague. Good morning, Breach.
Hi, Damien. Hi, everybody.
So just bear with me for 1 second and we'll get our slideshow up and running. No, I think we're good to go. Okay. So just before I start, I would like to mention as well that we are receiving great engagement. So if you do have any ideas before our webinar in April, please feel free to share with us. Our contact details are info@hrbuddy.ie. Our phone number is 06466980034, and feel free to look at our website at any time to have a look at what we do. Just to explain a little bit about HR Buddy, just in case you're not aware of us and it's your first time on with us. We're a HR consultancy. We work with clients throughout Ireland, providing HR consultancy, employment law advice, both remotely and on site if needs be. We also provide employment documentation such as employment contracts, staff handbooks, health and safety compliance documentation, safety statements, and so on as well. We have a payroll outsourcing service, and we also do employer of record for international clients. And we also have our own HR Buddy Manager software, which is a compliance software, which I will probably refer to a number of times throughout the presentation this morning. Also, just to mention that there is a Q&A box there at the bottom of your screen somewhere. And if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Hopefully we'll have time to get to any questions you may have. If we don't and we run out of time, because it's meant to be a 45-minute to a 1-hour session, I'm sure you all have plenty of commitments. So if we don't get to anything, don't worry, we will send out the presentation and the Q&As afterwards if we don't have time. But moving ahead, the agenda for this morning is I'm going to start off. I'm going to run through WRC audit compliance, okay? And I suppose the aim of this is, okay, it's one thing if you were to receive a WRC audit, how can you ensure compliance? How can you pass an audit? But I think it's a good mindset to be in, to look at it from the point of view, you know, if your business is WRC audit compliance ready, you have nothing to worry about, and it's the way you should be practicing. So I suppose it's about looking about it in that mindset, and we'll run through a good deal of information there then. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put questions in the Q&A. I'm also going to speak a little bit about HR and I suppose the ties with health and safety compliance. So I'll touch on that a little bit because very often these are separated. I think unfairly charge separately to clients by some organizations out there, which I think is wrong. I suppose HR and health and safety is very much tied together in employment law. So I'll discuss perhaps some of the areas of compliance there and some of the services and resources we have to ensure both HR and H&S compliance for your organization. Breach Fallon is going to give you a good deal of information because there is updates, of course, on the right to request remote working legislation and changes that are going to be made there, which is very much a hot topic at the moment. So Breach will discuss that and the information on temporary protection certificate update, as well as some other of the latest employment law updates. So we try and keep our finger on the pulse and have you updated by the end of this webinar. As I said, I will be speaking about HR Body Manager, and I'll reference that a number of times throughout the presentation this morning, because it's a compliance software that HR Body offer, which can ensure, I suppose, ease and efficiency in ensuring compliance in your workplace and in your business. And we'll finish off with some Q&A. So again, feel free to put them in there, and if we have time, we'll get through them this morning. If not, we'll get them out to you afterwards. So, okay, the WRC, I suppose a lot of people look at this and they fear an inspection. The advice is, with regards to any possible WRC inspections, is to get yourself into a position of not fearing one, really, okay? I suppose that's by abiding to employment law, and it's about compliance. So, the WRC don't come in and do an audit on your company culture or any of that type of thing, or whether you're retaining staff or any of those kind of, I suppose, golden HR practices that you would try and ensure you get right for the sake of your business and, essentially your bottom line. But the WRC are very much interested in employment rights and protecting workers. So I think achieving compliance is actually easier than what we think. But very often what we find, I suppose, in our practice here in HR Body, is people are contacting us when they've been informed of the upcoming audit. And what they find is they're running their business week to week or month to month, and their payrolls week to week or month to month. And they're leaving things slip and slide, I suppose, simple practices. And what I hope that we can do in the webinar this morning is that you can learn, I suppose, how to be efficient and how to get this right and get your ducks in a row as you go along, so that if ever you were to have a WRC audit, that you would be very comfortable. Or if ever your contracts or an employee was to take you as an employer to task and scrutinize your practices and your processes, and indeed your documentation keeping and so on, that you would be open to scrutiny and pass that test. Okay, so we'll start with the question, why would a business or an employer be inspected? Okay, now the first one there is in response to a complaint. So a complaint may stay confidential. Yes, an employee may contact the WRC and put the spotlight on an employer. I suppose that will always stay confidential. So if you get a WRC inspection, in general, you get 14 days notice. You would get it in writing. You would be given the contact details of your WRC inspector. The advice would be, these are just normal people. They should be treated with respect. They're open to communication. There is, I suppose, issues nowadays where you have remote working. Your employees may be working remotely. There are companies that are, I suppose, have their official business premises is actually their home. You've all those complications that have gone on in the last few years. The advice is to liaise and communicate with the person that you were given as a WRC inspector. Be civil with them. I suppose don't stonewall them, because that doesn't help. The other ways that you could be referred by other agencies, the Revenue, WRC, Department of Social and Protection, and so on. You can be jointly assessed. You may come into the spotlight for different reasons, such as social welfare payments, because of wages, because of tax, for revenue reasons, and all that type of thing. So it is also possible that you would have a joint WRC and revenue inspection. Ideally, you would try to avoid that, and ideally, we would try and help you to understand how you can avoid that this morning. Where you're operating employment permits, anything from a health and safety risk assessment point of view, and also you can just have routine inspections. So the WRC will also focus in on certain industries and certain pieces of compliance at different times. So if you take different, I suppose, changes in employment legislation over the last number of years, the introduction of statutory sick pay, maybe something that they would zone in on to ensure that employers are compliant because it's new and they want to ensure that the legislation is working. The tips and gratuities legislation that came in a few years ago might have been another area where they might just focus in on. We've had pension auto enrollment this year. So at different times, and I suppose especially when you talk about something like tips and gratuities legislation, that would then zone into a certain industry, your services industry, your hospitality, bars, cafes, restaurants, nail bars, and barbers and all that type of thing with regards to tips and gratuities. So sometimes they can zone in. They can come to your premises unannounced and start asking questions, but in general, for an inspection, they will give you 14 days notice in writing. Well, some of the common questions or queries you might get asked surrounding this topic is, will I be notified on the inspection? So if there's a WRC inspection, you will be notified 14 days in advance in writing. You'll get the name and details of your inspector, and the advice is to liaise with them and communicate with them. Another question that comes up is, do I need to prepare anything in advance? Yes is the obvious answer to that. I think the big thing here is, how do you prepare? Do you prepare when you receive the letter, or do you prepare now and not worry about ever receiving a WRC inspection? I suppose not being open to scrutiny and penalties if it were to happen. So I think very much this day and age, the way to prepare, I think, is through technology. It's one of the reasons why we developed our own HR software and HR Buddy Manager. There's an opportunity through these avenues to achieve compliance on an everyday basis, almost whereby employees can actually do the work for the business by clocking in, by showing that they've their time and attendance records, by uploading contracts and handbooks, digitally signing for them and so on. It spares work, it spares administrative time and cost and energy and stress and so on. But one of the, I suppose, things that we constantly come across when anything is being challenged by an employee, maybe taking on an employer and bringing them to the WRC, is one of the first things that will be thrown out, if it can be thrown out, is, I didn't receive my contract, I didn't sign my contract, I never saw the staff handbook. A client searching around to see what version of a handbook they can find. Nowadays, you can have all this available inside in the software for relatively very cheap monthly or annual cost. So if this is an area where you feel there may be gaps or you can do better, my advice to you is explore something like our HR Buddy Manager platform, because really it does the work for you, keeps your documentation, files it, reminds you of probation reminders, training updates, someone whose training is up, and all that type of thing. Again, another big excuse is I wasn't trained in this area, or an employer not being able to prove or that an employee was signed off on a certain type of training, such as bullying and harassment or something like that. Will the inspector talk to employees? The WRC inspector is allowed to talk to your employees. In general, all inspectors will be courteous and they'll ask for your permission. Not a good idea to stop them from talking to your employees. If employees are uncomfortable speaking with an inspector, they may accommodate them by speaking with them off the premises or away from the workplace at another time and date, and you should accommodate that. I suppose the one thing about that question I would say is, if you're not comfortable with your employees, communicating with a WRC inspector, there's something maybe wrong in the first place. And again, I go back to the point that even if they were to speak to the wrong employee, perhaps they mightn't have the best impression of your culture or something like that afterwards. But it doesn't make you non-compliant, because that's what a WRC inspector is there to do. It's the starting point is that you are compliant. They will set about ensuring that you are compliant, and they will find the holes and the gaps. And if there's holes and gaps, perhaps then you are non-compliant. but they're not there to ask people's impressions of you personally, or the company culture or anything like that. They're there to ensure that you're compliant. That's all. How far back will the inspector look at records? In general, that's 12 months. Then it may boil down to certain employment legislation, GDPR legislation with regards to, for example, if you were to take time and attendance records, you should have time and attendance records kept for your employees in your business from now and over the last 3 years. So they may go to 3 years with regards to that. But in general, the starting point for them is kind of a 12-month time frame. What happens if a non-compliance is found? Well, first of all, again, I go back to the point that you can work with the WRC, and the best advice is to communicate with them, to liaise with them, to be courteous, and to keep the lines of communication open. They will give you a chance if they find something is non-compliant. So you may be served with a contravention notice. And in general, what happens with a contravention notice is that you're allowed 21 days to produce the goods. So some examples, or the kind of obvious examples that come up more regularly on that, is things like showing that you are how you are paying public holidays, or that you are paying public holidays, that it's separated on pay slips in your payroll, that you can show that annual leave is being afforded to your employees, and again that is seen through their pay slip. So there'll be some of the kind of common mistakes where I suppose you may even be doing the right thing. You may be doing the wrong thing, but you may also be doing the right thing, but just not doing it correctly, document it correctly, and therefore having to answer to the WRC, which means maybe that whoever's doing your payroll, or very often people come to us in times like this, and you're kind of trawling back through payroll records, correcting pay slips, and so on, to ensure compliance. Worst case scenario, okay, there could be legal action taken against you, and there may be non-compliance with regards to pay. There may be recovery of wages to your staff. Not an area you want to get into, because again, higher chance you could involve, revenue inspections then, or revenue audits and that kind of type of thing as well. So not an area that you want. I suppose some of the common mistakes we do see is mistakes made with payroll, where staff actually do receive public holiday entitlements, but if you look at the employer documentation and pay slips, you can't see whether that has happened or not. So that's one of the common mistakes, which is a bit of a slip up, and that's why I will go back to ensuring that on a weekly basis, if you're running your payroll on a weekly basis, or bi-weekly basis, or a monthly basis, that you're running it correctly as you go. And again, these days it's much easier to do that with the tools and the resources and softwares available to achieve that. So the easiest way to pass WRC inspection is to do your work on a weekly basis and leave those tools and resources do the work for you. Can you be inspected by multiple agencies at one time, I suppose, is another common question as well. The answer to that is yes, and I suppose I've already referred to the fact that the Department of Social Protection, Revenue, and WRC are organisations and departments that will work together. Ideally, you would always try and avoid working with more than one of them at one time, because obviously, it's double and triple the trouble. It goes without saying. I suppose these are probably the slides that an awful lot of you want to see. It's the checklist. So what records do you need to have? So this is important. Your employer registration number, which is an easy one, hopefully. You'll always scramble around for it, but you'll find it. A list of all employees to include full names, addresses, and PPS numbers. Again, it's an area where so many employers, if you were asked to produce a list, you might produce the names, but addresses and PPS numbers, and there's someone in an office scrambling around. I would make the point, and I won't apologise for it. There's absolutely no need for that type of panic this day and age. It's very easy through a software or a HR Buddy Manager, to just have that at your disposal at the press of a button. Dates of commencement and end dates were relevant. And again, like over the years, we would have worked with many clients that would have contacted us for the first time when they were receiving an inspection, and trying to find out commencement dates or end dates of employees was just impossible. You know, you were ringing up accountancy offices who were running the payroll. There was no commencement dates and all that type of thing. Perhaps payroll swapped around from bookkeeper to bookkeeper, all that type of thing. Again, much easier to achieve this day and age. So I think anywhere there's physical paper to keep records, it's always more complicated. So my advice is do try to move kind of, you know, to the cloud, to a software where, you know, once a commencement date is put in there, it's there forever and it can't be lost or taken away. Statement of main terms for all employees, that's your employment contract. It's law that the main terms of contractual employment is agreed between both parties, and that's stated in writing. Your staff handbook would form part of that as well. Job classification can be, and job description for each employee can be a bone of contention. Obviously, it can draw complaints and disgruntlements. So that is an area that should be clearly defined as well. Annual leave and public holiday records are a big one. Historically, probably, you know, one of the easiest catches for a WRC inspector, if they entered your business, was to go through annual leave and public holidays, and, you know, straight away there was kind of issues there. So I suppose affording annual leave to your staff and doing the right thing and public holiday entitlements is one thing. Recording it on their pay slips and through payroll and being able to produce it has been another thing. Okay. So, and yeah, sorry, there's just some questions popping up on my screen. So again, if you do have questions, keep popping them in there. Sick leave records, another area, obviously a bone of contention as well. So something where employees may feel disgruntled and attract WRC. Very much, again, statutory sick pay. Again, I suppose since the introduction of statutory sick pay, this has been another kind of problem whereby sick pay being recorded correctly, statutory sick pay days. And I would have been surprised maybe in a few situations where, again, record keeping, you know, isn't good enough, to be fair. Employers can't go back and tell you whether sick leave was statutory sick pay or they can't show it, I suppose, the thing. If you have a WRC inspection and can't show that, look, the inspector isn't going away happy. You're going to receive a contravention notice. You're going to have to go back over this and be able to produce the goods and be able to paint the picture properly. Hours of work and rest records, including start and finish times, break times. We'll run through that just a little bit more in a minute as an example. Again, a lot of this would have been done on paper. A lot of employers are still not doing this, to be honest with you. Again, a lot easier nowadays to do it. You don't have to get someone to fill out paper. You know, there is apps there available where you can clock in, clock out, just like the HR Buddy Manager app that we have, where an employee can clock in and clock out, you know, on their phone, and break times can be recorded and all that type of thing. And the information is there on a daily basis and can be produced on time, should it ever be inspected or scrutinized at any time. Payroll details, including gross net, rate per hour, overtime. Again, something that can be a bone of contention. Deductions, commission, bonuses, and service charges. Again, commission, bonuses, overtime comes up all the time, and is a bone of contention. I suppose, again, to have this clearly explained in pay slips and not be kind of mixing up your gross pay and overtime deductions and commission bonuses and so on. It's something that people do make mistakes with. Evidence that you provide employees with pay slips, which should be relatively straightforward, and a register of any employees under 18 years of age. Again, that is an area in certain industries where you may have, you know, summer staff, temporary staff, and so on, maybe in peak season, hospitality obviously being the kind of obvious one. But there are certain different legislation for people that are under 18 years of age. And again, that you're adhering to that is something that the WRC would kind of zone in on as or something they would check if they are doing an inspection. So you need if you have employees that are under 18 years of age working with you at some stage throughout the year, you need to have a register of those employees, okay, because they are under 18 years of age. Board and lodgings information, I suppose in areas, and I suppose it has come up more, with the housing crisis where there are more employers kind of involving accommodation and lodging as part of taking on new hires. But again, being able to distinguish with regards to board and lodgings is important, because if that's to be examined and it's not clearly defined in the payslip, we will run through that a little bit more in a minute as well, because it is important, because an awful lot of employers do seem to have got themselves involved with board and lodgings because of the accommodation kind of crisis over the past few years. Employment permits are evidence that permits are not required. So again, if you have employment permits needed, that's an area most definitely that you need to have in order, that they're up to date and so on. Again, you may see those kind of run out and things like that. You can get administration staff leaving offices and signing businesses as well. It's hard to keep track of these things. Again, I suppose I go back to the point, and sorry if I repeat myself, but it is important that softwares can help you with this kind of stuff. So especially when you may have administration staff or people in the know and then they leave or move job, or there may be out for a spell on sick leave, and the whole thing becomes a mess. And the completed WRC employee details form. So with WRC inspection, I mentioned that you'll receive a letter 2 weeks in advance. You'll also receive a WRC employee details form. Now you can provide that through the form. Again, if you just have the information, you can provide it in any format that you want, once you have it, once it's correct, and once it's up to date. And the last one we'll touch on here is a record of electronic tip payments and tips and gratuities notice. Now that's relevant to everyone because it's in legislation, but obviously it's only relevant to employers that in the service industry and so on. We're going to go through tip and gratuity payments a little bit more as well, because it's an important area. So just to touch on a few, we can't go into all the details, or the meat of everyone this morning, because we'd be here for about 2 or 3 hours. So I'm just going to touch on a few of them. One of the most common ones where I think employers fail to keep up with compliance is hours of work and rest records. So the legislation is one thing, and again, I make that point. Knowing the legislation and trying to adhere to it is one thing. Proving it from a documentation point of view and producing the goods when you're asked is another thing. So lunch breaks, a 15-minute break after 4.5 hours, 30-minute break after 6 hours, and it can include the first 15-minute break. Daily rest periods, there must be a rest period of 11 consecutive hours in every 24 hours, and weekly rest periods, there must be 24 consecutive hours in any 7 days following daily rest period. So employers must have hours of work and rest periods recorded to demonstrate compliance. So like the WRC inspector asking an employee, do you get your lunch breaks? Do you get your rest breaks? And them saying yes, doesn't pass the test. You must produce the documentation. What has also happened over the last number of years is, more people now are hybrid and remote in certain workplaces. I suppose there's, a more flexible world of work now, whereby some people may think, well, we're a flexible employer, we do it right, we do right by our employees, we don't have any problems, we don't have any trouble. Then it's scrutinized at some stage, or there's one contention with an employee, perhaps there's a WRC inspection and you can't prove it. So you need to be able to prove it and produce the documentation records. And again, the advice is to do this as you go. It's reasonably inexpensive to do so, and actually saves an awful lot of time and cost to do it in that way. Board and lodgings. So where an employer provides board, food, or lodgings accommodation, the following monetary amounts can be included when calculating minimum wage. So board 127 per hour and lodging 33.42 a week. Sorry, just lost this. Sorry, excuse me. I just lost the screen there for a moment. So 33.42 a week or 477 a day. So board or lodging deductions must be advised to the employee in advance in the contract of employment. So we would come across that quite a bit where there is kind of a board and lodging agreements, but it's not being reflected in the employment contract, which isn't a good idea. And employers must keep detailed payroll records showing any board or lodging amounts included in payroll calculations. So again, we would come across that as well, where there is board and lodging agreements. And they kind of stay verbal and they're not specified in the employment contract. The documentation can't be produced afterwards to prove it. And it's not detailed in the pay slip of the employee as well. So it should be and it must be. And it would be a good idea if you are in any of these arrangements to make sure that that is detailed in the pay slip. Okay. So apologies now, I'm after losing my screen.
Okay, we can still see it.
Still got it, yeah.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so is that board and lodging? Sorry about that. Okay, so tips and gratuities. It's another, maybe not relevant to everyone. As I said, from a legislation purpose, it is relevant to everyone, but obviously WRC would concentrate on the relevant businesses with regards to this. It has improved since the legislation came in, but there's still, I think, in my experience, just as a customer going into establishments, still not clear what the policy is on tips and gratuities and service charges and how they are distributed to staff if I were to leave a tip when I'm paying my bill in a restaurant or a cafe. So it's law to do that. It should be seen. And as a customer, I should be able to see that. So straight away, you would attract attention from the WRC, even just in an on-spot inspection if you're not doing this. Not only must the customer be aware of it, your employees need to be aware of it as well. So it should be part of your employment documentation. Okay. I suppose, look, there are electronic tips, there are cash tips. Some people might have felt that this legislation wasn't fair, but it is important to kind of look at your policy. You want to be fair to your staff. And then you want to communicate it to your customers and to your staff. So if you haven't developed a tips and gratuities policy already, the areas that the WRC look at, which are perhaps the areas that you should look at, is you zone in on the hours of worked by the employee during the pay period. You look at the experience, seniority of the employee, which you can take into account. You look at the income sales generated by the employee for the business and whether any agreements on tip distribution are in place. So they're the kind of areas that you would look at to try and find the fairest way in which you want to distribute tips and gratuities to your staff. You want to communicate that, put it in writing, have it in your staff documentation, and also that it's clear to your customers and you pass the test, okay? Apologies, I'm losing my screen. My IT expertise has been shown up again.
Yeah.
Okay, so with regards to, I wanted to touch on this morning health and safety, because I suppose regularly we're contacted by people. They have both, I suppose, HR needs and they also have health and safety needs. I mentioned there earlier on at the start, very often these get separated out into two different things or two different services, and quite often, not by us, but by some organizations out there, charged separately. I want to be very clear in saying that HR and employment law and health and safety in the workplace are intertwined in one another. So if you take a look at the screen here, you'll see bullying and harassment, grievance and disciplinary procedures, a safety statement, ergonomic assessments, weather, which I'll touch on in a minute, and health and safety training. Okay. Most definitely, with regards to HR best practices in your employment documentation, you should have a policy and a set of processes laid out in your staff handbook in detail with regards to bullying and harassment and preventing bullying and harassment in the workplace. You would also have a grievance and disciplinary procedure, and you should have bullying and harassment training done with all of your staff. That is a legal entitlement. That crosses into the health and safety. So we cover health and safety here in HR Buddy as well. We can also provide safety statements, which again, if it is a legal entitlement that there is a safety statement in your workplace for all of your employees. We provide ergonomic assessments and we provide VDU assessments. Again, very important, I suppose, in today's work where you've more remote work, people perhaps working from home and so on, that you're staying on top of that. So we also provide those assessments for you if needs be. And again, if anyone needs updates or help in that area, you can contact us at HR Buddy. With regards to anti-bullying and harassment in the workplace, there is a training on the HR Buddy Manager platform. It's not charged extra or anything. It's part of the platform and the app where employees can go in, do the training and sign off on it, and the records are there. Weather is something that has come up in particular because we've had more, I suppose, extreme weather events as well, where an awful lot of workplaces, and again it crosses over into health and safety legislation of your workers and their rights with regards to traveling to work during yellow, orange, red warnings, all that type of thing, and policies not being in place. So again, we can get policies in place that are bespoke and tailored to your business with regards to what happens in yellow, orange, red warnings and weather alerts. And whether your staff attend the office, can work remote, can perform days in lieu, whether they're paid, unpaid, and all that type of thing. And it's a good idea to save confusion, ensure the safety of your employees, but to avoid confusion, to actually have a policy in place. And with regards to training, health and safety training, we can help you with all of that as well. I'd also like to announce that inside our HR Buddy Manager platform, our partnership with Irish Life and Wellbeing, and over the next week or so, and again, it's part of the pricing in the HR Buddy Manager platform. Irish Life and Wellbeing are partnering with us to provide training videos for mental health and well-being inside in the HR Buddy Manager app. They're going to be released onto the platform over the next week or so. So we're very excited about that. You hopefully hear more about that across social media platforms and so on over the next week or so. But again, ensuring with regards to well-being of your staff, that you're providing the right training and resources and tools for them, I suppose is a no-brainer. And again, it can be done relatively easy nowadays and inexpensive in that we're making it available through the HR Buddy Manager platform. There's no kind of big payouts for training days for each topic or anything like that. So please, if you want to have a look at that, contact us at HR Buddy and we'd be happy to give you a demo and help you out. Okay, that's probably enough for me. I know Breach is mad to get in here and get going. So I'm going to pass over to you, Breach, now with more employment law and HR updates. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks so much, Damien. I will try keep it brief and just run through a few topics with you. So I was going to speak briefly about remote working because the government announced their update last week with their report. So just to talk you through that, believe it or not, you're going to be surprised, but I'm just going to briefly update you about the pension and the auto enrollment because there is some news in the media about that as well, just to go through that with you. And then also the temporary protection certificate, the yellow paper. There was news with that, so I just want to update you on it. And then the EU pay transparency. So I'll just briefly talk about that because that is only 3 short months away. So it's just to provide some advice and guidance on this for you. So the remote working, I'm sure you're all heard about it in the news last week and in recent months. So as you all know, as of the 7th of March 24, employees have the legal right to request remote working. So under Section 29 of the Act, the government, there had to be a formal review within 1 to 2 years. So that's what was taking place there in November and December. There was the public consultation. So you heard about that in the news all the time, and all the employees were coming in, and employers, it was open to everybody. But there was a very high volume of submissions were received. And in that review, employees called for the process of decision making to be more transparent and objective. Many employee responses expressed dissatisfaction with the WRC's limited powers. So I suppose the public response wasn't great. So the government reviewed all that. If you want to move on there, Damien. So the review found, which was really surprising, like less than half of all employees in Ireland were aware that there is a formal or a legal right to request remote working. So that's like a massive number. And the review signals that access to remote work is strongly influenced by the employer's size and sector. So the final review and report, it was published last week. And surprisingly, so it's saying like no legislative changes are proposed as the Act is operating effectively and proportionately. So that's what has come out. But they have recommended that the WRC review the code of practice and that they make recommendations in relation to that to strengthen it and make it stronger. So what they have suggested is that the WRC review it and that they're going to support employers to give them a more comprehensive and transparent reasons for their remote working decisions. So it's not going to be a blanket no. They have to give really strong, transparent reasons. They're going to put clear templates and guidance for employees applying for the remote work. So all that will be available online, and the WRC are going to have to work on that. I suppose that's the recommendation. And then there's going to be clarity around the timelines set out in legislation. So stricter timelines so that employees and employers are aware of their obligations in this regard. There's going to be like a more structured consultation when considering remote working options. So just guidance for employers about the structured, and it's going to be more consultation, not just a blanket no or yes or whatever it may be. And to promote the use of the WRC mediation service as well. So the Department of Enterprise is to commence a targeted, you'll see all this in the news in the next while, a targeted national information campaign. So that's to increase the knowledge and understanding of the right to request remote working, because they have really found like if only half of employees are aware that they have the right to request it, that's really surprising figure. So it's going to be all over the media in the next while. So the government are going to continue to support the remote work. So that'll be by the high-speed broadband rollout to 1.1 million people. The National Hub Network and National Hub Strategy, they're going to continue with that. Tax reliefs for working at home, which people are aware of that they have already. And then ongoing research, including the forthcoming National Economic and Social Council analysis on remote and hybrid work. So the government have announced that that's all the things that they're going to be doing. I just put this in here as well about the right to request remote work bill. So as you would have heard in February, there was a lot of talk about that in the media as well. It was all over the news. So what that was basically was the Labour Party. So they introduced the work-life balance, so the right to request a remote work bill in 26. And what this proposes was moving from the right to request to like the right, I suppose, the presumptive right to remote work where the role allows it. So they didn't want it to be a right to request. It was just a complete right. They wanted stronger justification requirements for refusals and broader scrutiny for the employer decisions. So it was, I suppose they were putting that bill out in February, and the December was the public consultation. And then in March, just last week, was the government report coming out. So the timing of their bill was, it was what it was, but it was, I suppose they're just trying to get votes and decide on what they were trying to get votes, I suppose. But if you just move on there, Damien, it's a private member's bill. So if you're not aware of what that means, I suppose that means that it was just introduced by the opposition party. So obviously they're not the government. It does not automatically become law. It must pass all stages of the Dáil and the Seanad. So it usually requires government backing to be progressed. And many private members' bills are amended significantly or do not pass at all. So, and even if it is supported, enactment will likely not occur until late 26 at the earliest, and it may not pass at all. So that's what they came out with. So I just wanted to kind of update you on that. So that was the public consultation, the right to the report that came out last week, and that's about the private members bill. So hope you're up to date now on that subject. The temporary protection certificate. So in February 26th, the Department of Justice advised that they have extended immigration permissions for all the beneficiaries of temporary protection, and that's up to the 4th of March 27. So it applies to all beneficiaries of temporary protection who are residing in Ireland. It's called the yellow paper, the certificate. So they might have had it that were residing here in Ireland till the 4th of March 26, but now that is valid up until the 4th of March 27. So holders of the certificate, they don't need to apply for a new certificate. Expired certificates can be used as proof. I did have a WRC inspection with a client recently, or even it was around last year when this happened as well, and they said it was no problem as long as the cert is there. If it's expired, that's okay because of this update that was in the news. And then just, I suppose, to keep a track of like your records, if you have it there, just update the report or your internal tracking system that it's up until next year. And if you have any employees, you should continue to, like with this protection certificate, continue to keep a copy on the file. And like I said, they have permission to stay in Ireland until the 4th of March 27. Just moving on to the auto enrolment. The news that we had in relation to this was that, as everybody knows, auto enrolment has been in the news for a very long time now, and it's for those aged between 23 and 60, earning €20,000 and do not have a company pension scheme of their own. But there are employers out there who have ignored the request to initiate the auto enrolment. So it's very surprising that this has actually happened, but it was in the media recently, and they're really ramping up, and they're making employers aware of all the sanctions that are in place for breaches. So the penalties have significant sanctions. So there's a screenshot here of it. So administration failures. So they're saying that there's a 5,000 fixed penalty for that. Preventing enrollment. So 5,000 to 50,000 is the penalty that they're putting in place for that. Encouraging opt-outs. So you will see some employers are saying, auto enrolment has commenced, but please note you can opt out in this month and this month. If you want to do that, please let us know. So I suppose they're seeing that that's happening in organizations because a lot of employees actually don't want to be in auto enrolment. Some of them don't, and they're using it as like a savings. Because if they opt out in those months, they get their money, they get to get their money back, but the employer obviously doesn't. That stays in the employee's pot. So some people are looking at employees are looking at it in that way. And then non-payment there's a fine there as well. Okay, so just on to the EU Pay Transparency Directive as well. So that's just to, I suppose, remind you of the requirements before the 7th of June, which is only 3 short months away. The 7th of June, these are the requirements that will be coming into place. So it's the initial pay level or salary range to be provided to applicants. That will be on job adverts. It's going to be advertised. Employees or candidates, should I say, will not be permitted to be asked about their current or their previous salary at an interview. Employees may request average pay levels broken down by the gender for employees doing the same work or work of equal value. So these are the things that the requirements that are going to come under the Act. Pay secrecy clauses within contracts of employment, that's going to be prohibited. And then the gender pay gap reporting. So that would be annually for 50 plus employees. When a gender pay gap of 5% or more, if that is identified, then that's going to trigger a joint pay assessment, which will occur between the I suppose the employee representatives and the employer. So they're going to have to sit down and look at that. So it's very important that people are on equal pay for work of equal value. So people need to start looking at I'm sure people are already doing it, but just looking at people doing the same work and work of equal value and seeing, are they being paid the same? And if they're not, what are the differences for? The the directive was adopted by the EU Parliament in 23. So as I said, Ireland has until 7th of June to incorporate into law. It's to promote equal work, work of equal value. So several key legislative measures and supporting tools are still outstanding and to be implemented by the government. So the government have still not done it. It's only 3 months away. And I suppose employers and everybody is wondering what's the update on this? And that's what it is. But they need to, the government may possibly introduce the obligations on a phased basis. So the obligations that I mentioned in the previous slide, that is a suggestion out there that they may be publishing, or they may bring it all in all at once and they'll have it done, and guidance for employers, or else they're going to introduce it on a phased basis. But we saw what happened with the auto enrollment here in Ireland. That got delayed. And then we also saw with the sick pay that was supposed to increase over the years, but now it's still at what 5 days, what it was at. So it didn't increase. So what I'm saying is sometimes things do get delayed. The Netherlands previously, a good few months ago, already asked for their 6-month extension. So that could be in the pipeline. But needless to say, I do think it's important that employers definitely continue to prepare in relation to the key areas. And we'll keep you updated, of course, on our monthly webinars if any changes that come into play with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Breach. We'll get the questions up there now, and we'll run those through for you. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, if you have any topics that you would like us to do in the webinars, we run them on a monthly basis, and we've had, as I said, great engagement as well. So thanks very much for that. And then it's very heartening to the team in HR Buddy when we prepare I suppose, the newsletters and the webinars, to see people engaging with them and people coming out. So thanks very much for taking the time to do that. And hopefully we'll be finished on time here this morning. So I think you were panicked, Breach, that you wouldn't get through it there maybe in time, but it looks like we're going to do it. It's going to work out again. Also, stay tuned to our socials as well, because we are constantly, putting up information when it's coming to us, and we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse and so on. And if you need help, I suppose in any of the areas we can help you with, whether it's HR, employment law, payroll, or having a look at the HR Buddy Manager software, which might help you, please feel free to talk to us at any time, and there's no obligation. We're happy to support any Irish business, big or small, and we're happy to do that in a flexible way, always. The questions, is there a favourite you want to take, Breach, ladies first, or will I just jump in?
You can go with the first one. I suppose it was about your records. It was just saying, are they for the 3 years? So that's about what you were saying about the audit and the time and attendance records and so on. So that would be for the 3 years previous. That, like you were saying about the 3 years.
Yeah, for time and attendance.
Just clarifying that. So it would be the 3 years.
Yeah, so if it was another area, it may be a different time frame. We definitely wouldn't have time to go through all the time frames. But when I mentioned 3 years, specifically time and attendance, but generally for the WRC audits, they work off 12 months. If they zoned in on time and attendance, they may look for 3 years, which they're entitled to do so. If it's other aspects, then there may be different time frames tied into law. So yeah, there's one there then where an employee is off sick for 12 months. When they return, do they get 2 years annual leave? So it's questions phrased in a certain way, but so an employee who's off sick is entitled to their sick pay, to their sick leave and to their public holiday leave for 15 months, but it's rolling. Okay, so I suppose the way the question is phrased there is 2 years of annual leave. Someone's out for 12 months, January, December, say, do they have 20 days from that year and then the 20 days from this year? It is rolling, so, or if you want, I suppose, pro rata to the calendar year. But yes, if someone is out sick, they're still entitled to their public holiday pay and to their sick pay. What evidence would be accepted that permits are not required. Is it permitted under GDPR to retain a copy of employment? But yes, well, a passport most certainly can be kept on file because it's reasonable to keep the passport on file as part of applying for permits and so on. I suppose it's very clearly distinguishable whether an employee needs an employment permit or not. Okay. So, for example, an employee from a foreign country wouldn't be able to attain a PPS number without an employment permit and so on. So, there's a process in that. So, it shouldn't be, I suppose, that confusing or that complicated. Then another question. How does this apply to on-call rotas? And it's probably came in at a certain point in the presentation now, so I'm not sure what exactly you're referring to. Sorry about that. But anyway, we'll get back to you if we can clarify what the question is about, or you can come to us individually, there's no problem. Can anyone request remote work? Must the company provide a form? Okay, that's a good question, actually. Can anyone request remote work? Yes, that's what the legislation is now. Everyone is entitled to request remote work. No one is entitled to remote work. They're entitled to request it. Must the company provide the form? The employee must provide the request in writing. There is a process for both the employee, and there is a process that must be followed for both the employee and the employer. Okay. Now, employers, I suppose, should have templates in place to request remote working. Yes, I think this is part of what Breeze ran through in her presentation, that the review is saying that the code of practice isn't strong enough. So I think this is an area where the review is saying the code of practice is going to be strengthened so that the paperwork and the templates is made stronger so that it's clearer. So I think at the moment, actually the majority, 52%, don't know about the right to request remote working. I suppose employees don't know how to go through the process properly and all that type of thing. That's what looks like is being strengthened. But like for the moment, what must the employer do? If the employer gets a request, they must follow the process correctly. They can decide on their decision, but they don't have to explain the merits of the decision. But you must follow the process, such as getting back to the employee, responding within a certain time frame, and so on. Okay. How long can an employee be out on long-term sick leave? Is there a cut off, or how long the company needs to pay them annual leave? So the annual leave question I answered there is it's the 15 months rolling. Okay, so you lose out on the 15 months previous if it is long term. It's a very complicated answer to give you the answer on how long can someone be out on long-term sick leave. You should involve an occupational health I suppose, a company doctor to your business to ascertain, can you accommodate someone who's on long term? So that's very important that you get medical opinion to back up anything that you do. There is, I suppose, a 12-month. It's not definite, but the one thing that you can take into consideration with long-term sick is if you can't accommodate someone after 12 months, it does impact upon other people's employment rights. So but again, every situation is different. It's tricky territory. So I can't give you a kind of a definite kind of time frame or answer, but most definitely involve medical expertise from occupational health. Get their opinion on whether you can accommodate them, and the long-term illness, you can always look at it at kind of 12-month time frame, because that's when they start to block other people's employment rights, and that should be taken into consideration. We have a remote workforce. What the documentation or breaks would be required? The exact same as if they're working on site in an office. So it's the same employment law for someone working remotely. So you possibly need some sort of remote system like HR Body Manager to be able to document that. For board and lodgings, is there a limit to charge? If it is accommodation provided by employer separate to where the workplace is, does a limit apply. There is a limit, the limits that were set out in the presentation. So we sent out the presentation after we're finished here to everyone who's on the attendee list. So we'll send that out to you again, and hopefully that information will be at your disposal. I think more questions maybe are still coming in. So this is in relation to rest period. Yeah, so if someone is on call with regard to rest periods, the rest periods only apply during the working hours. So if you're on call, you don't get a rest period after 4 hours because you're on call. It's when you come into action, and then if you do four hours of work, that's when the rest periods start coming into play. All right, I think we got them all, Bridget. If we didn't, look again, we'll send out the questions and answers afterwards, but I think we're after getting through all of them there, and we're gone past 12 o'clock. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for staying with us. And we'll see you again next month. And if you need us in the meantime, please contact us, and we're happy to help. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.